second context is I've started to take some of these special elections in Northern Virginia pretty seriously, and to see what has happened in the space of 3 and 4 months. You know, the Moran election in Alexandria was 16 points. That may have been candidate-driven more than anything else.
You said points.
16 votes, excuse me, not 16 points. Very, very close. But the two Fairfax elections were really fascinating to me. The first one was a county-wide election with Sharon Bullock at Heritage. In that election, the Bullock won, but with 50.4% of the vote. Remember, Obama had won in Fairfax 2 months earlier with 60%. Won by 109,000 votes in Fairfax County. Huge turnout as well. And Heritage, if you look at that election, he complained about Democratic spending. What he did is that he ran against the Democrats as if they were the establishment. And that's part of that's happening now. I think it's not so clear that the Republicans are the establishment any longer in Virginia. The Democrats may be the establishment. And that anti-establishment vote had an opportunity to go the other way. And then when you saw the election for Bullow's seat in Fairfax, that actually went to a Republican. So the Democrats are saying both of them were low turnout elections. They didn't matter very much. I tend to think that they're more anxious about those elections than they let on. And particularly the statewide election, the countywide election on that front. And the Democrats, I think, at the end of it, believe that Bob McDonnell's going to run better than Jerry Kilgore in Northern Virginia on that front. The Democrats are not going to run up the same kind of margin that they did previously. So McDonnell seems to me, as I said, to be a strong candidate. He's well positioned. There's going to be a brutal Democratic assault against him. They're going to basically argue that he's engaged in a makeover, and that he's opposed the progress of the Warner-Kane years, and that eventually he's going to try to move the Democrats backward. That's going to be the Democrat argument against McDonnell, and it's going to be well funded and it's going to be consistent. The Democrats this time, however, they have the three-way fight on their hands. They have this contest going on. And it's an interesting contest because you had these two people from the legislature. You had Creed Eads versus Brian Moran. And Moran thought he had it all wrapped up because he thought he knew what it was going to be. It was going to be the urban metropolitan guy against the rural guy. There are more of us than them in a Democratic primary, and he thought it was really going to be this uphill battle for Eads. Then what happened? All of a sudden, Terry McAuliffe last fall said, well, I guess if Tim Kaine can drive up I-95 and take my old job, maybe I can drive down I-95 and take Tim Kaine's position. And he came into the race, and it unsettled the Democrats tremendously because it unsettled the frame in which they were going to run. And particularly for Brian Moran. What was he now going to do when you had another, quote-unquote, urban metropolitan guy in the race who was going to be far better funded than Moran and have the ability to be on television and the ability to bring in new voters? So what's happened there is that Moran, it seems to me, has taken a two-pronged attack on trying to respond. The first is to get a lot of these local officials and work on endorsement. So Moran, every day you find another announcement of more local officials endorse Brian Moran, that he's the Virginia guy compared to the external guy, the out-of-the-carpetbagger. That's one line. The second line is for Moran to move to the activist left in the Democratic Party, particularly on environmental matters, as you've seen. That he's against offshore drilling of any kind, exploration. He's against the coal-fired plant in Surrey. I'm over here, that I'm the true progressive in the race. That's what Moran is doing. McDonnell, in fact, at the same dinner I mentioned, looked over to Moran in his comment and said, Brian, no one's going to be able to accuse you of looking past the primary. And the Moran strategy is really premised on the fact that, on the assumption there's going to be a very low turnout in the Democratic primary. The two recent Democratic statewide primaries in 2005 with Leslie Byrne winning the lieutenant governorship, that had a 2.6 turnout overall, 115,000 voters. Jim Webb had 155,000 voters, 3.5 turnout. So if you talk to the Moran people, they'll tell you there's going to be a turnout somewhere between 155 and 200,000 voters. And if we just kind of mobilize those Democrats who come out all the time and who understand that Brian's been working in the state for years, we're going to win this race. Deeds, I think, looks to me to be embracing a strategy that's part rural and regional. I'm just going to take the rest of the state that's not urban metropolitan. I'm not sure there's enough votes there for that strategy to win. And then secondly, I'll be the anti-corporate populist. I'll try to embrace sort of the populism that's out there in the public right now. And that's an interesting feature because the Democrats have now, it used to be the Republicans who had all the populist messages, the anti-tax, the anti-government message. There's now a version of Democratic populism out there that's anti-corporate, kind of a return to the days of Henry Howell here. But that's out there, and that seems to be Deed's strategy. McAuliffe's strategy is this kind of unusual, though interesting mix. How did the guy who's coming in from the outside run? What did he do? And McAuliffe's notion is that I need to expand that electorate. They make a distinction between what they call proven Democrats and surge Democrats. So the distinction is this. In the Jim Webb primary, 3.55% of the total state registered voters came out. In the Barack Obama primary, I think it was about 22% of the state registered voters came out. That was a surge one. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to push that turnout up from 3% to 5% to 6%. And they think if they do that with their media resources, with McAuliffe's personality and the like, they'll win. That what they need to do is they can't have this brutally low turnout election. They want to do it. And they've hired Mike Henry, who's a Democratic campaign manager, who's a person who's kind of been known for expanding the Democratic vote. Expanding, he went into the Kaine campaign, they went into the exurbs and did far better than the Democrats had done previously. And so that seems to me to be the McAuliffe strategy. And then to focus, he straddles the business populist line, and he does so in an interesting way that McDonald people have to pay attention to by this focus on jobs. In fact, I think McDonald people have stolen McAuliffe's message in some fashion, or have tried to steal it in part of their campaign now. But what McAuliffe is doing is saying, I'm a businessman who can do what the populists want. I can actually bring jobs to Virginia, and he's going out around the state and doing that. So right now, if you look at all these polls, the Democratic numbers are very bunched. Some polls have McAuliffe a little ahead, some have Moran a little ahead. Deeds is actually still within striking distance. But what's dramatic about it is a large number of undecideds right now on the Democratic side. So the question that everybody would have is, who's likely to get those undecideds? Who can expand the easiest to get those undecideds? Is it Deeds, who hasn't been a vigorous campaign yet, but starting to now? He's really husbanded his money. Is it Moran because he can make the argument that I'm the true Virginia progressive? Or is it McAuliffe who has the resources and probably better, stronger candidate skills per se to go out there and sell himself in the next couple of months? And you can take your pick on that. I probably think I have a feeling about myself who has a stronger possibility in that sense and who might still be the favorite. But that's where the Democratic campaign is right now. They got this undecided block of voters, and who can expand their base to get them. I think Deeds may also be helping that if Moran and McAuliffe really fight, he'll be the adult in the room and come out of that alive as well. But that's where the Democrats are.